What's this doing here? Sorry. Ooh. Oh. Hello. It's been a while. My name's Brendan. I used to make videos about life, ADHD, moving to Toronto, sharing what I could basically as I figured things out in my life. That was a different version of me. I've since completed my master's degree, which was very busy. That's why I haven't done many YouTube videos or any since February 2023 because I was so busy. But what else I did was I broke my leg. So that was fun. I was walking around in a foot cage for about 3 weeks. And then I graduated. I started working at a biotech startup, which was very enlightening, very cool, very fast-paced, and a great opportunity. And I also applied to medical school, and then I also interviewed for medical school. But somewhere along the way, I had a little tiny, big existential crisis with ChatGPT. Of course it was with ChatGPT. Although this led me back to YouTube, I wanted to kind of share these perspectives that I kind of explored and new insight. It was a good excuse to kind of reboot the channel in a sense and understand what this AI thing is all about and how it will impact our careers as medical illustrators, but not just that, but also in medicine. So at the startup I worked for, it was all about efficiency, fast-paced work. Basically, can you pump out all this stuff really quick? But it made me kind of rethink my process there. And I was trying to think about ways I could be more efficient, what tools I could use to make myself more efficient, which is good. I think I had emailed a lot of my professors asking them, how can I become more efficient? And then they just said, like, practice. But there was also AI all around, which makes a lot of sense because it's a startup. So they basically want you to, or they want to use innovative technology, right? So they're going to use AI everywhere. So the engineers, for example, I mentioned earlier, they use the AI to code my anatomy project in only 2 days. Now, coming out of academia, AI was kind of seen as taboo, especially in medical illustration. It's seen as like a shortcut or a threat to critical thinking. So there's a bit of like a culture clash going on here, being in a startup versus being fresh out of a master's degree. That said, I started using like ChatGPT more out of like skeptical curiosity, kind of thinking like, well, what if I asked it like this? What would happen? And so the shift happened when I started asking it some very personal questions, stuff that I would usually reserve for therapy. And I was surprised that it gave some pretty helpful advice. And I knew that there were ethical issues, the environmental impact, big data scraping, the fact that it's trained on publicly available content and potentially stolen content. But, in that moment, I felt supported and I wanted to kind of know why. And so with the mindset that maybe this tool can maybe it has the potential to help a lot of people. Then I started using it more. I was using it to ease emotionally difficult emails, prepare for medical school interviews. It was generating interview prompts, giving me feedback based on how I answered, and even giving me little pep talks like, you can do this, Brendan. And I was pretty pleased with all that. And all the while I was learning everything I could about the little large language model in my pocket. I learned as well in my own research that the way that these AIs like ChatGPT work is that they they're trained on all of humanity's like collective knowledge that's publicly available. So that includes scientific papers. So while there's hallucinations and that's a big concern, a lot of the content that it echoes back to you is based on some scientific knowledge. And so in a sense, these GPTs work like a mirror of humanity's collective knowledge. And that's why it seems like it gives such good advice to bounce thoughts off of. It's basing that advice off of that collective knowledge. And then ChatGPT released its image generator. And easily it was one of the most powerful I'd seen, as well as one that was publicly available, easy access just on your phone. And this Ghibli style generator, it produced a lot of controversy, of course. But I don't think there's any denying that a lot of the content that it was producing was eerily good. For a medical illustrator, this felt like a gut punch. And for anyone watching who doesn't work in this field, this is what it feels like. Every time image generation tools advance, there's this wave of dread across the field. It's not just about stylistic theft, it's about purpose, it's about meaning. Why spend hours carefully creating an anatomical piece if an AI can approximate it in just a few seconds? Just going back to the startup in November, I had just graduated. I was burned out from graduating, but then I also spent the first 8 weeks working really, really hard at the startup. And then I ended up hitting a wall and becoming burnt out. And basically, I was trying to do this breast anatomy piece for the upcoming RSNA conference. And that said, I had to draw a bunch of fat lobules, and I was so tired that I was getting frustrated having to draw fat lobule after fat lobule and make sure that it looks good. But sensing my frustrations, one of the designers came up behind me and he said, what if we could somehow use AI to generate the rest of the fat? At the time I brushed it off, especially as, in my mind, AI is taboo. I should just be working harder and I need to just produce all these fat lobules because that's what I have to do. But this idea kind of stuck with me, it would seem. Then in January, I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn. And basically they were asking for career advice. At first I looked at their portfolio and I was like, oh, this is some pretty cool work. They're like a biomedical communicator like me. They have a bunch of anatomical pieces. But then I realized that the majority of all of her pieces were AI generated. And then I saw her Instagram and there was a bunch of AI generated photos of herself. I began to even question whether she was even a real person herself. Turns out she was. But then my coworker pointed out to me that this is a skill, a controversial one, but it's still a skill that's becoming increasingly prevalent in the workforce. But let's bring it back for like a reality check. Right now, AI-generated material, AI-generated medical art isn't accurate. And even then, with the recent image production advancements like the new ChatGPT tool, it's still not able to do the specific work that we do. It's only really able to do editorial pieces like covers or aesthetic pieces, stuff that looks good. Basically, it can't replace what we do, at least not right now, but it could become a tool. Perhaps training an AI on your own work to generate the rest of those fat lobules. That's still your work, it's just more efficient. And given how fast-paced and innovation-minded the startup I was working for was, it began to feel like a sure-minded thing that this is where the field would be headed, whether we like it or not. So I shared that to my Instagram stories, and some people weren't happy. I had a few unfollows, I had a confrontation. It made me pause and reevaluate. Medical illustration is a fantastic career. It's not just a job, it's something that manages to combine a few very meaningful things into something that only a select few of people can do. It requires an understanding of science and health. It also requires artistic and communicative talent. For those able to do all of those, it's truly a dream career. And for some, it's about the art of it. It's about the joy that comes from handcrafting something pixel by pixel. But for others, it's about helping people. It's about empowering patients, educating the next generation of future doctors, and translating the human body into something understandable by any audience. But at its core, the work is very human. Not just in the soul of it, but also in the empathy when working to convey ideas to people. It's about intention. It's about care. And so I understand why so many of us are afraid of AI and why some feel betrayed by these image generators, which are often trained on stolen artwork, or those who are disheartened by what it might mean for the future. That fear does not come from stubbornness. That fear, it comes from love. So I then dove deeper into AI. I wanted to kind of figure out where this is all headed. And how it will affect not just the field of BMC, but also other careers, like my own career that I really want, which is medicine. And that's when AGI came up. Now, for those who are out of the loop, AGI is basically artificial general intelligence. It is AI that is so efficient that it can replace the human brain in many aspects. It can basically work at the same level or better than the human brain. And the idea is that AGI could replace many fields, not just medicine and BMC. All you basically have to do is prompt the AGI or integrate it in some key systems, and it will be able to produce high-quality illustrations or diagnoses very accurately. But part of me was like, that can't be real. That can't actually happen. Like, that sounds like science fiction. But the thing that scared me the most was that everywhere that I looked, on both sides of the aisle, said the debate was when AGI will come, not if it will come. Everything was assuming that it's going to happen. So panicking a bit, because that means that everything that I've worked for is for nothing, I posted to Reddit basically asking which medical specialties are the most safe from AGI. And basically the first response I got was none. Very grim, no. And so I decided to respond with ChatGPT because my ChatGPT had been telling me basically psychiatry is because it's the most human. And so then it gave this really long, well-worded, well-backed-up argument for psychiatry. And I basically replied to that guy with that. And the guy basically responded by saying, oh, it's all about the bottom line. I'm all about money, even though I'm in Canada, which is universal healthcare. And then at the last bit, he said, like, I'm not going to talk to you through ChatGPT. Think for yourself. But I found that kind of ironic. Like, will humans ever be able to trust AI? Like, I'm literally using AI, and you're saying that AI should replace all doctors. I'm using AI to explain something to you, and you're saying, nope. It was just a bit ironic. But I kind of spiraled further from there. I began asking myself, like, is everything that I built pointless? You know, I've spent most of my 20s finding meaning through helping others through medicine and illustration. That's what's gotten me out of bed on my hardest days. That's what's kept me going through really difficult times. What happens when machines outperform us? And the thing is, so many of us build our identities around what we create. And so when that gets shaken, it's not just a professional crisis, it becomes personal. So, you know, I asked my family what gives them meaning in life. I was posting late night Instagram stories on my close friend stories about this stuff. And I kept using ChatGPT even while it was freaking me out. And eventually I recognized my spiral and I went for a run and I successfully touched grass, as they say, and decided to get back into YouTube to share the spiral and open the conversation. Now, while I was sharing all these crazy things to my Instagram stories, close friends though, I've been catching my oversharing and I'm only sharing it to like 25 people now. But one of my good friends reached out to me when he saw me spiraling about AGI. He's a computer science PhD student. He's one of the top in his class, and he's researching large language models. Specifically, he's working on machine learning and AI. And basically, if anyone would know where the field is headed, it would be him. And I was surprised, like he completely diffused my anxiety. He said that he doesn't think AGI is coming, and he laid down a bunch of reasons why. And the main reason, he said, is because the architecture that it's based on is kind of too simple. That's what he thinks. It's just transformer models. And if you don't know what that is, basically, it's just using, if it looks at one piece of like the word, it'll use the context around it to predict what might happen next. That's what it's been trained on. And so everything that it does is just predicting patterns. None of it's actual thinking. And he debunked a lot of the hype around the so-called emergent properties that a lot of experts are saying are present. These emergent properties are basically new traits that are not originally programmed for, and they're supposed to signal that AGI is coming closer. He said that if you look at the paper closely, the original Google paper showing emergent properties, you can see that it's based on some cherry-picked stats. Basically, the data is more is not like continuous. It's not like over a select region and averaged. It's like a specific cherry-picked data set. And the real data that's probably more relevant is actually buried in the appendices. But it seems like people in the field kind of took this to signal that, yes, AGI is coming. So he also went on to explain that the current hype around AI benefits corporations. It's very sensationalistic because of it'll benefit corporations working towards these things. And part of the reason for that is because if AGI is possible, it means fewer workers, it means more funding, and more profit for those at the top. So of course the rich would want to invest in that. It would basically mean that they wouldn't have to deal with labor rights or payroll ever again. Basically, the reason why we might not hear about any of the limitations of current AI systems could be simply because it's not profitable for us to hear. That narrative needs to continue to increase funding. In addition, he also pointed out that ChatGPT's supposedly next big model, GPT 4.5, is not that much better than 4.0. And in fact, in some cases, it's a bit worse. And that's despite using exponentially more resources than 4.0 uses. And this seems to imply that the current scaling model that a lot of these systems are based on might not be totally true. And what that means is the idea is that you could keep pumping more and more power into these AI systems. That's why it's so bad for the environment. And it'll just keep producing a better and better AI. But because GPT 4.5 isn't that much better, this idea might be partly false. So maybe there is a ceiling, and maybe we're closer to reaching it than we think. Now, if you're curious to learn more about the limitations of AI, I've linked a TED Talk in the description from an expert that lays out these limitations very well as how much the narrative might be driven by sensationalism and not science. Now, the other thing I wanted to do, I didn't want to just talk to people who are in the AI field. I wanted to also talk about people within my field, within medical illustration, to kind of get a sense of where they think things are going. So when I spoke with these professionals in the medical illustration community, especially those who are medical educators, they're going to be training the next generation of medical illustrators. Well, from those conversations, what became clear was that while there's understandable concern, it seems that the general direction may be going towards thoughtful integration of AI into our workflows. Not as a replacement, but more so as a tool to improve efficiency, especially in the more repetitive or production-heavy aspects of the job. And, there's no consensus what that could look like yet, but I got the sense that the real focus is on preserving the integrity of the craft while staying open to change. And that felt really important to hear. That was a lot to get through, but let's finish it off. AI is a powerful tool, but it probably won't be replacing us anytime soon. More likely, it becomes the next Photoshop, the next camera, a tool that changes how we work, but not why. While that could be controversial to integrate AI into our workflow, from what I've seen working in the field, it's already being used this way in many other aspects of work. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it means we can focus on the more meaningful aspects of the job and using AI only when it actually helps. Like when drawing the same fat lobules over and over again and your hand is starting to cramp. Of course, we still need to fight for regulation. We need to fight for the environment, to protect artists, and also for the integrity of the craft. And if AGI does become real, well, that means that the meaning of work is going to change for everyone, not just us. And that's not something we can fully control. But what we can do is we can stay informed, we can stay grounded, and keep doing what we love for as long as we can. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you've been following this channel for a while, I know I just kind of vanished for a bit there, but thank you so much for sticking around. It's been busy. I had a lot of things going on. I had my master's, my personal life, this YouTube channel, and emotional growth, all kind of interplaying, and something had to slide to be able to survive. Unfortunately, the YouTube channel had to. But that said, I'm hoping to get back into it. I'm planning to do some vlogging as well as some reaction videos, maybe med school related. But I'll leave that to future videos so there's something to look forward to. And I'm trying to build a meaningful life, and this channel is part of that again. Anyways, maybe we're all paranoid androids after all. Thank you for watching.